My name is Emily, but everyone calls me just Em. I was born and raised in a small town in Pennsylvania, where time seemed to stand still, and people lived by old traditions. Since childhood, my world was confined to the walls of my home and school, and then just home. My father strictly said, "A girl doesn't belong at work. Your only path is to study, and then marriage, be a good wife." So I lived like a caged bird. I had almost no friends. Who could you befriend when you are always at home? I didn't know any guys except for the rare ones I glimpsed when I went out shopping with my mom. Years went by, and then I turned 23. My father, of course, was already worried. "Well, it's time, we need to find you a husband." But who would I be offered to if nobody even knew I existed? Then Alex appeared. A tall, serious man with sharp features, who was 30 at the time. He worked abroad, dividing his life between 2 cities, had managed to support himself, and even helped his 2 younger sisters. He had no parents or brothers, just them. One day, family friends, knowing I was a good girl, suggested he meet me. Alex agreed, even to a photo that was passed to him through acquaintances. When he came to town on vacation, he visited our home. His introduction to our family lasted no more than half an hour. He briefly shared about his work and life. "Why are you not married yet?" he asked. Alex simply replied, "I had to help my sisters first to make sure they were all right. Now it's time to think about myself." I listened to him and realized that I would probably feel calm with such a person. He seemed reliable, a strong man who kept his word. When my father hinted that we were ready, Alex said, "I don't need anything, I can handle it myself." But Dad refused his help. He said we needed time. Alex agreed, proposed, and returned abroad while I stayed behind waiting. We communicated over the internet. Our conversations were brief but respectful. He never flirted or said anything superfluous, only talked about his work. I shared about my daily life. And I confess, the more I talked to him, the more peaceful I felt. We had a modest wedding. For the first time, I was alone with him on our wedding night. He was reserved, even somewhat confused. We began with a prayer, and then we just sat together for a long time. He took his time, didn't rush me. It seemed to me that even in those moments, he maintained respect for me. It was only later that I realized it wasn't just respect. It was uncertainty, perhaps even a lack of experience. The night passed quietly, but without passion. I didn't know how it should be, so I didn't complain. We lived together for exactly a month until Alex left again. Before he left, he said, "You are my wife. You should be in our home, not at your parents'. I don't want you to visit them often, only on holidays. Let our home remain ours." I agreed, but when I was left alone, I realized that living in an empty apartment was frightening. We moved into a new house, but there were almost no neighbors, and the night silence made me uneasy. I was afraid of every rustle, every knock. I told Alex that I was scared, but he replied, "If you can't handle it, go back to your parents. But I would like you to get used to it." I didn't get used to it. I returned to my parents' house and soon realized I was pregnant. I joyfully informed him, and he was happy too. But then came the news. He wouldn't be able to come for the birth. I was angry, felt lonely. I missed his presence and care. I gave birth to a son and sent Alex pictures. He again sent money and gifts, doing everything to ensure I didn't feel a lack of material things, but I needed something else. After giving birth, I suffered from longing. In the evenings, I stared at the ceiling thinking, "Is this how it should be? Don't I deserve more?" I missed him, but my hands remained empty. Then I persuaded him to sell the apartment. I wanted to live where there was life. He agreed. The new home was better, alive and full of people. And most importantly, there was a girl named Sarah living in the neighboring apartment. She became my true friend. We were the same age, only she had been married for 2 years. Her husband, Jake, worked late and often stayed out, so she felt lonely. We started spending all our time together, and then I heard them one night as I was putting my son to sleep in the room facing the yard. I heard sounds I'd never heard before, sounds that were intimate, passionate. They drifted up from Sarah's apartment below. The next day, I hesitated to ask, but night brought those sounds again, and another night followed. I started listening to these sounds that stirred something within me. Something I had never felt with Alex. I couldn't tear myself away from them. I awaited them like a forbidden pleasure. One day, running my hands along the windowsill, I thought, what if? And then I did something I hadn't expected from myself. I decided to talk to Jake. I hesitated for a long time. Jake was merely my friend's husband. I knew him to be polite, caring, serious, but the moment I heard those sounds, everything changed. Every night, I seemed to wait for them, eagerly listening for every moan, every movement. In my head, the thought spiraled again and again. Why does Sarah have this and I don't? When Alex called, I answered coldly. He didn't notice anything. He thought I was just tired from being with the baby. I didn't talk about my loneliness, how I curled up under the covers at night, replaying someone else's passion in my head while my body remained numb and forgotten. I lived in my world, filled with emptiness and forbidden thoughts. One evening, Sarah came over with a bottle of wine. Jake won't be home tonight. Let's spend the evening together, she suggested. We sat in the kitchen, laughing, talking about trivial things. She told me how she met Jake, how he courted her. I looked into her eyes and thought, does he love you as passionately as I hear at night? And then Sarah suddenly asked, what about you and Alex? He's always away. I froze, not knowing what to say, that we didn't have what she had, that I fell asleep in a cold bed while she lived at night with everything I lacked. I smiled. Everything is fine. He cares about me and our son, shows interest. That's true. But She looked at me as if she knew all my thoughts. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. You're shy, she said, laughing. You're sweet. But you should relax. Maybe when Alex comes back, you can do something special for him. She clearly had no idea what tormented me. After that evening, I made up my mind. I found Jake's page on social media, scrolled through his photos, read the comments. In every image, he looked like a loving husband, commenting sweet things to Sarah, while he addressed me simply as a neighbor. But I didn't stop. I gathered the courage and messaged him first. Hi Jake, it's Emily, your neighbor upstairs. The reply came almost immediately. Hi, is something wrong? I bit my lip nervously. What to say? How to lead into the conversation? But the inner voice whispered, you know what you want, just say it. Can I ask? Are you always this passionate? There was a long pause. I felt my heart racing in my chest. Then a reply came. What do you mean? My fingers trembled. I hear you at night. Now the pause was even longer. I almost thought he would ignore me, but when my phone vibrated again, I gasped. I understand. And what do you want to say? I took a deep breath. I want to understand what it feels like. Now he didn't respond. I nearly thought he would reject my message, but when he answered again, my heart raced with adrenaline. We can meet and discuss it. I felt something wild stir in my chest. I made the first step into the abyss. I read that message several times. We can meet and discuss it. My hands shook, my heart raced, my mind screamed. Stop, you're not the one who does this. Yet something stronger pushed me forward. I typed without waiting for Jake's reply. Tomorrow afternoon. I took time off work. Sarah thinks I'm busy, so we'll have plenty of time. Where? Let's meet at your place. It'll be safer. I shut my eyes, thinking about my place, the one where only my husband should live. But I didn't back out. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Dark circles under my eyes. Hardly slept. Excitement and fear battled within me. I approached the mirror and saw a different woman. Not the quiet Em that was married off and left alone. Not the one who fell asleep in a cold bed while her husband texted that he missed her. I saw a woman who wanted to feel desired. I did my makeup lightly, put on a fitted black dress that hugged my knees with a deep back cut. I let my hair down, soft curls cascading over my shoulders. I wore high-heeled shoes. Why was I dressing up like this? I knew why he was coming, but I wanted him to see me, to look at me as no other man had. At exactly 2 p.m. the doorbell rang. I froze, took a deep breath and opened it. Jake stood at the door, dressed in dark jeans and a light shirt with the top button undone. He looked at me, taking me in from head to toe. "You look stunning," he said with a slight smirk. I felt warmth pooling in my cheeks. "Come in." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The apartment was quiet. My son was at my parents' house, and we were alone. I went to the table, poured 2 glasses of wine, handed him one, then took a sip from mine. He watched me. "Are you sure?" he suddenly asked. I looked at him, words stuck in my throat. I knew this was wrong. I knew my husband didn't deserve this. But didn't I deserve more than this life? I placed the glass on the table and stepped toward him. "Yes," I whispered. Jake looked at me thoughtfully. "You're completely different from how I imagined." I nervously chuckled. "And you're not who I thought you were." He slowly caressed my cheek with his fingers, then leaned in closer. I held my breath. This kiss was nothing like Alex's. It was hot, deep, and intentional. A wave of sensations flooded me. Sensations I had never experienced. I forgot everything, my husband, my conscience, my fear. I just lived that moment. When I lay beside Jake, I understood I had crossed the point of no return. He smoked lazily, staring at the ceiling. "You're amazing, Emily," he said, exhaling smoke. "You've held everything in for so long that you didn't even know who you really are." I stayed silent, overwhelmed. "Do you regret it even a little?" he asked, turning his head toward me. I looked into his brown eyes and suddenly realized. I regret it. But I didn't answer. I just smiled at him, turning my back and closing my eyes. A moment later my phone rang. I grabbed it from the nightstand. "Alex." Froze. Jake smirked. "Answer it." I swallowed hard and pressed it to my ear. "Yes." "Hi, love." My husband's voice was warm. "How are you? How's our son?" I felt my throat tighten. I lay next to another man while my husband cared for me. Are you there?" Closed my eyes. "Yes, Alex, everything is fine," I replied in a steady voice. "I'll be coming home soon, in a couple of months. I hope you've missed me." I stared at the ceiling, feeling a weight on my chest. Did I miss him? Jake's words echoed in my mind. "You didn't even know who you really are." And I did know. I looked at him. He was watching me and slowly smirking, as if he understood everything without words. I smiled back at him in response. "Yes, Alex," I replied into the phone. "I missed you a lot." I wasn't ready to stop after that night. I was no longer the same. I lived in 2 worlds. One by day, where I was a caring mother, a dutiful wife waiting for her husband, where I smiled at Sarah, discussed the weather and recipes, pretending to live a normal life. The other was at night, where I lay with my desires. Here were his hands, his lips, his voice. Jake became my sweet poison. Every night when Sarah stayed at her parents', he came to me. Sometimes he didn't leave until dawn, slipping out just before I woke to brew coffee. I knew this was wrong, but I didn't want to stop it. One night when we were together again, he asked, "What if Sarah finds out?" I looked at him. "What if Alex finds out?" I replied. Jake chuckled. "Alex trusts you too much." That word stabbed me. Trusts too much. I betrayed him each time I allowed Jake into my home, into our bed. But the truth was that I could no longer live without this, and I didn't want to stop. But then came what I feared the most. It was an ordinary day. Sarah came to me one night, the door opening abruptly as if a storm had swept into the apartment. "Emily." Her voice trembled with rage. "You were my friend." My heart raced to the point where I could hardly breathe. "You slept with my husband." I couldn't deny it. "Answer me." Sarah's eyes sparkled with tears. At that moment I felt utterly worthless. I couldn't deny it. "Yes." My voice was barely audible. "You destroyed everything I had," she said, her face twisting in disdain. She turned and left, slamming the door behind her, And I knew that was just the beginning. The next morning Alex was strange. He looked at me as if he felt something. At breakfast he said, "Sarah came to see me yesterday." My fork clattered to the floor. She said. He looked at me. "Something has changed." Froze. The world around me ceased to exist. "It's true." His voice was steady. He didn't shout, but it terrified me more than if he had. I lowered my eyes. "Alex." He inhaled slowly. "Just tell me." I knew lying was pointless, but telling the truth meant destroying everything. I took one last breath. "Yes, it's true." He closed his eyes, then slowly stood up, grabbed his coat and left. I remained at the table, gripping the tablecloth in my hands. Inside it felt empty. I had destroyed my entire life. 3 days later, Alex packed his things. He didn't shout or insult me, he simply said, "I can't forgive this." He nodded. I didn't cry. I had no right to complain. Chose this path. I destroyed everything. Jake also vanished. He left for another city, abandoning Sarah. I heard she went to stay with her parents. Our home was empty. I was alone. One evening I turned on my phone, went to the gallery and looked at photos of Alex. Our picture where he held my hand, kissed my forehead, laughed with me. And only then did I cry. I lost the only person who truly loved me, but I realized it too late.